10 cards that we want to see retrained in the original Artworks collection. So make sure you guys smash the crap out of that Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon so you guys don't miss out on more awesome. You know, considering the fact that Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon has been remade a few times, I think it would be absolutely hilarious just to finally see, you know, a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon of, like, the heart or the soul. You know, you gotta remember, we're focusing on the 10 or 30 years of the manga at this point. The Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is a pretty iconic piece. Maybe not as much as Blue Eyes, but they already pulled out a Dark Paladin, you know, retrain. I don't really see why we wouldn't see an emphasis on a Blue Eyes Ultimate retrain, you know, for the 19th time. But the thing is, you know, would it be Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, Neutron Blast? You know, well, what could this Blue Eyes Ultimate actually do? We already printed Master Magia, so this one seems very interesting for the potential of what they could cook up. Exodia, the Forbidden One. Exodia is an iconic card for this game. He has always been one of the most emphasized and most interesting monsters that, you know, the game has had. You know, obviously from being the headliner to the unstoppable Exodia to being, you know, tossed overboard by Weevil Underwood. And then the whole fact of, you know, seeing the, you know, interactions in the later half with Solomon manifesting and summoning Exodia itself. There is some very interesting things that we can see actually coming along with this series. And I kind of like that. I like that having access to Exodia has been an iconic thing throughout the years. But the question is, you know, how do we Exodia, you know? We've had many retrains for this guy throughout the years. Do we slap another win condition on him? Do we, you know, we print another head that acts as the head? You know, Ultimate Exodia sending the pieces? I don't know what we can do. Thousand Eyes Restrict. This one, we just got a Thousand Eyes retrain about a year and a half ago. This one becomes an interesting topic of conversation, though, because maybe Thousand Eyes isn't the centerpiece they want to go with. There is Relinquished. Keep in mind, in the original artwork series here, we are getting an Illusionist Faceless Mage reprint, which we've already tried to do the Illusionist Faceless Mage reprint. I don't know if that's actually going to work, but the fact that we have the Illusion archetype actually coming to fruition and actually being a part of the actual trading card game now, I do think we could see some love actually being presented more towards the Pegasus side of things, whether or not, you know, it's Relinquished, if it's Thousand Eyes Restrict 3, you know, there's a lot of cool potential that Konami can, you know, toss at us to be able to actually try to make that work. And honestly, that's kind of interesting. I gotta give it to them. Now, there is the topic of Jinzo. This is interesting because we already gave Jinzo literally a retrain, like in this set, as the Psycho Shocker within Joey's deck itself. So, do we think that they're going to do another double dip on Jinzo, just as a generic card? Because, you know, you still got to think about it like this, right? Jinzo was still a separate entity from before this. I mean, this goes for all of Joey's boss monsters, you know, the Mako Tsunami. Insect Queen is another one that we might actually see, maybe not in the artwork series, but in the next set after this, because, you know, Joey did have more than just a couple of little stray guys within his deck. Seeing Joey actually have the Insect Queen, I think, or the Perfectly Ultimate, whichever one he actually wins in the manga, it would be really, really cool to actually see. You know, gathering of the boss monsters is really cool. Now, there's Buster Blade. Now, the fact that they created Dark Paladin to be able to work without Buster Blader says that they might not necessarily have Buster Blader on the list of cards to work with. But Buster Blader is a pretty iconic monster for the way that the show was, or at least the anime was, because, you know, he has his own manga form within the set. So we could get, you know, Buster Blader, the Dragon Slayer. You know, it could be a monster that, I don't want to say it's going to work the same way as the Greatest Thief, but there could be something to be said about what if we have this monster that, acts as a dragon slayer, but also, conditionally does other things as well. That's the thing you have to emphasize and think about, right? Generic-esque power is one thing, but also, still specializing within its realm would actually be really, really flavorful for that. Monster Reborn. This is the most iconic card in the game, I feel like, next to, Dark Magician and Blue Eyes, because there's always a card that, is going to revive a monster. Now, we did get Monster Reborn, or spell card Monster Reborn a little while back, where they were like, I guess it was like the prelude to the anniversary stuff, where we actually got it, I think, last year. So maybe a direct 1-to-1 of Monster Reborn won't exactly come true, but if you were to make an effect that could actually peak and work with this together, I think would be pretty ironically cool. Monster Reborn is also one of the cards that's always just been, it's never been at more than one in the card game, and I think it's because they feel like, if you're getting a second lease on life in this game, you shouldn't be allowed to do it multiple times, but then there's Magician of Faith, so I mean, like, okay. Swords of Revealing Light. Now this one I can get behind. Swords of Revealing Light is one of the functionally coolest cards in this game because it dispels the darkness. It creates this wall of swords that locks your opponent in place for 3 turns. It was the, I'm a continuous spell card, but I'm not a continuous spell card. I don't get the negative side effects of this, but you could still somehow MST it and things like that. The card was very unique in the way that it has worked. There's been a couple of retrains for Swords of Revealing Light, but at this stage, as we are heading into more of the 30th here, I think a Swords of Revealing Light, especially, like a manga rare swords, would be really, really cool. It's such an iconic card. Flipping up everything, dispelling the darkness, locking monsters on the field for 3 turns, making them not able to attack. Like, that's such a flavorful thing that this game has had. Gandora, the Dragon of Destruction. I mean, we just got Little Yugi's deck like 2 years ago at this stage. Seeing another Gandora retrain would be a little bit, I guess, taxing at this stage. But the thing is, though, Gandora was such an iconic part to the final duel. Gandora Giga Rays, being able to clear up the field. Actually, I guess it was against Bakura, where we were actually able to see the Giga Rays clearing off the field and actually, getting little Yugi to where he needs to be. I do like that. I think that was such a cool idea. And Gandora really feels like little Yugi's monster. He's the Dragon of Destruction for a reason. He's not Chaos Emperor Dragon levels of broken, but he still acts in a similar way to being able to get you some emphasis on kind of that value. So I kind of like that. Crush card. Oh, if there's a card within this game that I would love to see receive a retrain, I think Crush Card Virus is it. We do have a manga art Soggy the Dark Clown coming, which means they are in fact acknowledging, Soggy's existence. And Soggy is usually pretty together with the Crush Card Virus. Now, how would they do it? Because they did originally errata Crush Card to be able to, not necessarily be too broken, but I do think whatever they would possibly try to do with Crush Card here in the future, I think they would try to bring back a little bit more of the classic flavor to it, just to kind of unleash its power. Either way, Crush Card's probably, no matter how they spin this, Crush Card's probably going to end up being one of the most powerful cards that they could retrain. And then there's Gold Sarcophagus. Now this is probably another super iconic card. When Yugi sealed Monster Reborn within the Gold Sarcophagus, and it was the final card that the Pharaoh, tried to use to quickly win the game by trying to remanifest Slifer the Sky Dragon. The sealed chest actually had the power of Monster Reborn locked away in there. And it was such a blow to the Pharaoh that Yugi had surpassed him and actually sealed away his own Monster Reborn, foreseeing that the Pharaoh would reach for that card. And, something like that could very easily be reestablished in the modern era, where, you know, you could seal a card away from your deck and make it so that your opponent can't use that effect. That would be wild to see. But these are 10 things to consider, seeing as retrains for the anniversary and the manga original artwork series. So this should give you an idea of some things that we might actually see. You guys have a good rest of your day, all right? Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.